My pleasure now to introduce you to David Berlin. David is DAZN Director of Product, Mobile and Content Discovery. And David's going to tell us everything that we need to know about how to build a successful SVoD platform. David has a wealth of experience, including the BBC iPlayer mobile team, where he launched the iPhone and Android tablet apps. And most recently, he's a founding team member of DAZN, which, for those of you who don't know, is a pure sport OTT streaming service. David's led design and delivery of the browse interface across all platforms from day one of the project. Now, DAZN, it's a fascinating company. 2 years since launch, it's become the highest valued startup in the UK, has millions of subscribers in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Japan, Canada, Italy, US, and soon Spain and Brazil as well. So to get you all up to speed on the company, we'll now see a short video, please.
To wrap it up for Liverpool here.
DAZN. It's a groundbreaking deal in the history of the sport. Watch DAZN.
Wait a minute, for just $9.99?
So David, to get us started, can you just briefly tell us about the origins of DAZN?
Sure. So Perform had been going for about a decade when Len Blavatnik bought them up and took them off the stock exchange in order to start this new project. He is the major shareholder for Spotify and DAZN, and with Spotify, he'd disrupted how people digest music. He'd watched how Netflix did it with film and TV, and he identified sport as the next major area that was ripe for this kind of disruption. So he went out and with the original Perform team went and bought a lot of sporting rights. They spent 1.8 billion on J-League rights for the next 10 years, so that's all 3 divisions, and also the Premier League in DAC, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. At that time, we didn't have a product. So we had to, it was exclusive rights in Germany, we had to get live by July 2016. Otherwise, I think there was huge amounts of compensation per week. So they went out, I mean, it was a huge challenge. It was kind of the hardest deadline anyone had ever been given. They found Ben Lavender, who launched iPlayer. He then went on to launch Love Film Online and also Amazon Instant Video. And Ben then went and found other people who'd done similar sorts of things before. So he stole myself from BBC iPlayer. I was looking after mobile. Also, the head of living room from BBC iPlayer. There were people from Amazon, Netflix, Spotify. And 12 of us sat in a room 3.5 years ago and tried to work out what the hell to build. We didn't have time to get teams, to get development teams online. So we had no choice but to go to third parties. And so we chose best in breed from subscription management, encoding, front and back end development. And we've gradually started to bring those in-house where it made sense now that we've got a little bit more time. However, we hit that launch in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Japan within that year on around about 20 platforms. And it took Netflix and Amazon around about sort of 5 to 7 years to do that, to do the same thing. And we subsequently launched in Canada in 2017, and then US and Italy this year, Spain and Brazil the next year. We broadcast, this year it will be about 20,000 events, which is 200 million hours for users, which makes us by a long way, by volume, the largest sports broadcaster in the world. We've also gone from those 12 people in that room 3.5 years ago to, I think there's 2,300 at the moment just on the DAZN projects, and in the DAZN group there's another 1,000 or so. So it's a real white-knuckle ride.
Large operation. And how many of those people are involved in the design and the build and the product side of things, would you say?
We have teams in Amsterdam, a large team in Poland, Leeds, and London. I'd say there's probably coming up to about 1,000 who are involved on the technology side of things. Obviously, we're host broadcasters for a lot of these sports, and we have camera teams and editing suites and customer service, call centres, etc. around the world. But yeah, it's around about 1,000, I'd say, on the technology side.
So could you just explain to us how the DAZN platform, which is obviously specifically for sports, for live events, how does that differ in the approach that you take towards building that and rolling that out? How does that differ towards more general platforms that you might have been involved in the past?
We thought we'd done it before. I mean, we had lots of people who had lots of experience in OTT, and whenever we start a project, we think about various principles and understanding what the need is in a particular territory. So if you're going into, say, Canada, everyone in Canada uses fantasy football, and someone might score a touchdown or a conversion, and they're getting messages from their fantasy apps before they actually then see it on the OTT platform. Previously, it had been on broadcast, which has much lower latency. So we had to understand that problem in the first place. In Canada, we have to concentrate on latency. Going into Brazil, it's going to be a very different issue in that people want to have really high quality because it's been on broadcast previously. However, the internet is not so good in Brazil. And therefore, if we concentrate and put all our money on high quality, then everyone would see buffering on the lower encode. So we have to concentrate on making our encodes smaller and the bottom end of our media set of a higher quality. I've got a slide actually that talks about our approach. I suppose I'll start with this one. It's important to understand the need and the opportunities and the problems in the first place before we start jumping to solutions. Apparently, this was said by Einstein. He didn't say this, but if I only had 1 hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes to find the problem and the remaining 5 minutes solving it routinely. So we try to educate our senior stakeholders to come to us with issues and problems that we need to solve rather than coming to us and saying you need to build X, Y, and Z. And how we start building something in the first place is making a list of the things that we know. So we will look at our principles and our assumptions. And if we make a list of all those things, all the things that we don't know yet about a new project or a new territory, we can extrapolate out. We call it kind of the algebra of requirements. And I can give you an example here. So one of the things that we thought we would want to do right from the very beginning of DAZN was have autoplay with people being able to browse over the top of it. Pretty much all of the sport that we bought previously had been on conventional broadcasting platforms. And so people were used to turning on their TV and sport to be happening. And if it's the live game at the moment, you want to get into that game as fast as possible. So if we can get people into, even though it's an OTT service, go straight into playback like conventional TV, it was much more palatable in places like Japan that really hadn't got their head around these OTT services. Also, there are lulls in sport. So if it's not quite an exciting game, maybe you want to browse and see what you want to watch and that's also happening at the same time. Or maybe you want to check out what you're going to watch tomorrow. So allowing people to browse over the top of playback was a big principle straight away. And that meant that we had to come up with some kind of format like this for our home screen. The other thing that made patently obvious was that if you come in and something plays straight away, you haven't gone and chosen it like you might do on other OTT services, we had to play the right thing. So we needed personalisation. If you're a tennis fan and you hate football, and you're in Germany on a Saturday afternoon, we have 35 football leagues across Germany. So trying to find the tennis that you want to watch is really, really hard. If we can personalise it so that when you come in, the thing that you most want to watch, maybe the thing that's live at the moment is the thing that auto-plays, and when that finishes, the next thing plays that you most like to watch, and the next thing, and the next thing. We have continuous play, perhaps, of that personalised rail at the top. Then it's zero friction. And people can come in, and it's almost like your own personalised channel. There's no cognitive drain whatsoever, and people will look forward to using that service rather than every time thinking, oh, I've got to go and find that tennis amongst all of the football. So again, a principle was we need a personalisation. We're actually launching this next week across most of our territories.
And is that as a result of feedback that you get from users? How do you go about making sure that what you're rolling out is exactly what the subscriber wants?
Again, it's incredibly important to do huge amounts of testing. We have hypotheses. As I say before, we all thought we knew exactly what we were talking about, and this would be easy. However, we need to fail early, so we'll prototype a hell of a lot of stuff. We have beta communities that we'll send stuff to, and we do A/B testing, we do stage rollouts and soft launches, so we don't let marketing go and shout about any of these things until we're sure we've proved them and they work out in the wild with real users. We've had some of the learnings from places like iPlayer or Netflix, Spotify, proved correct. Things like cross-platform user journeys. We know that people will want to go from a mobile phone to a TV into a tablet and take the thing that they're viewing across these platforms. People generally want to watch content on the largest screen possible. However, if the game started and you're on the way home on the bus, you can't watch it on the TV. So that's when you're watching it on your mobile phone. You get home, you turn your TV on, the thing that you're watching on your mobile phone should be the thing that automatically plays on your TV. And similarly, when you go to bed and the game still hasn't finished, you can take your tablet and you take that game with you. At the BBC, we did a lot of analysis on this, and we found that the peaks for all platforms was between 9 and 10 o'clock every day. There were small peaks in the morning when people were going to work with their mobile phones, at lunchtime on PCs, etc. However, with tablets, it was at 11 o'clock. It was the only platform where the peak viewing was slightly later, because the thing that someone was watching hadn't finished yet. Come on, darling, come to bed, and so they take it on the tablet. And we think we reduced the birth rate in the UK by allowing these cross-platform experiences. But
it's quite a claim.
I haven't seen the exact data, but we were wrong, though, about quite a few things. So we were right about this, and this has been proved correct on DAZN. However, we thought we changed the way that people digested sport. We wouldn't just come in and copy what everyone else did. So if you've got a set-top box and you start watching something, you can only rewind back to the point where you started watching it. But as we're in the cloud on all platforms, we thought if you come into a live game, there's no point in putting you into the live moment, because then you see the score and you won't want to go back to the beginning and watch the whole thing, whilst you can with us. So we will start every single event from the start, even if you come in and it's near the end of the event. And then you have the choice to watch the entire event without the spoiler, or there's a big button saying jump to live.
And do people prefer that? Is that?
So we built it and we tested it and we were totally wrong.
Right.
And everyone hated it in all of our territories, and it's different. Some things people like in other territories.
So you'll vary that according to the country, according to the territory?
This particular thing, no,
right.
Because it was a huge thing to build, and it was a big decision. But certainly landing pages, and there are some navigational paradigms, etc., that we've had to change between different territories. What we found with this is that everyone said, if you show me what the score is and it's 4-4, I know I want to go back to the beginning and watch it. And if it's 0-0, I know I don't want to go back to the beginning and watch it. But the thing that really annoyed everyone was if they hear a cheer from the next door neighbours and they've got no idea what they're cheering for, then that makes them irate. So we had to put people in at the live moment. Live's incredibly important, and that's something we've had to learn.
So with the platform well and truly up and running and reaching a stage of maturity, can you just talk to us about how you approach iterations of the platform, that methodology, how you will land upon a particular idea and what that process is for then seeing it through and getting it out into the wild?
Sure. I suppose innovation in general, we have two different approaches to coming up with ideas in the first place, and traditionally there were two. The two polar opposites are apparently asking people what they want. So you do surveys, testing, etc. You get feedback, and then you give them what they want. Tony Blair famously would ask people what they would vote for and would make policy from it. And then there's the other school, which is the Henry Ford approach, where he says if you ask people what they want, then they'll say a faster horse, because they don't understand that a car's possible. And apparently Apple have the approach where they don't ask people what they want, they get the greatest minds and people who are technically advanced, and they ask them what's possible. And in actual fact, the truth is neither work in isolation. Every major organization does both. So you get good minds, people who understand what's possible. You include the devs who understand what came in a new OS update. You ask many stakeholders, you go to conferences such as this, see what the zeitgeist is, etc. Everyone can come up with the idea in the first place. However, a lot of these incredibly intelligent people coming up with these amazing ideas are ideas that only incredibly intelligent people can use and don't make business sense. So you then need to test the hell out of them. And a mixture of those two is really what every major organisation uses.
And how long would that process take, would you say?
It depends. We spend a lot of time at the very beginning. So we use something called working backwards, which is an approach that Amazon use. When we first started, there was a more or less half and half mix between the Amazon people, ex-Amazon people in the product team, and then the nice people, sorry, the BBC people in the product team. And we tried to get the best of both organisations. From the BBC, we've taken kind of BDD and Gherkin and lots of agile approaches. We had lots of training from people like Matt Wynn and Marty Kagan, etc. And then from Amazon, we've taken this working backwards approach, including PRFAQs. So before you write any code, before you do any designing or anything like that, the product manager responsible for that particular project will write a press release. And it's the press release as if it's the day that you're launching. Today we're launching personalisation. You turn it on DAZN and it just plays exactly what you want it to play. Anything you watched before is left out. You can now lean back and never have to use your remote again. Yeah. Joe Bloggs says, it's the best thing ever. I'd never turn DAZN off. My wife isn't so happy, something like that. We then write FAQs, frequently asked questions, for what on that day of launch, what would our users want to know? So how do I turn it off? How does it work out what I want to watch? Is it available on all platforms? What happens when I watch something? Will it disappear, etc.? And we also write FAQs from an internal perspective. So which teams are going to build this? How long is it going to take? Do we need to go out and buy things from third parties, etc.? And once we've created that document, and again, it's before anyone does any other work, we get feedback from every part of the business. So customer services will read it, ops will look at it, marketing are looking at it. They're all feeding back, asking questions that need to be answered before we do anything else. Once it's got sign-off from the business, before you've even started it, it's much easier then to write your requirements and get something built, get the designs, because everyone understands what the reasons are behind it, etc.
Okay, and then just very quickly, because I'm being told that we've unfortunately run out of time, but it's a question I wanted to ask you because I think it's particularly relevant for everyone who's here. How do you go to market to source the best of breed components. And how should suppliers, well, I suppose the crux of it really is how suppliers should engage with DAZN?
So in general, our strategy is to get to market as fast as possible. We are very agile, and therefore, if we can get something out and test it in a market, we're getting feedback immediately. We might have feature A, B, and C that we think we want to build. And in the olden days, people would wait and build A, B, and C. If we build A, look at it, play with it, is it worth releasing? Maybe not. Maybe we need to build B. Can we release it? Do we get some benefit from it? If we can, we release it. And we then find out from feedback from our users that C isn't the right thing to build next, it's D. So if there's new innovations, if there's areas we want to go into, we will go to third parties for speed rather than trying to get the best developers in, because it takes a very long time to get the best developers. So we are interested in these new ideas. People should come to us and talk to us about it. What we don't want is people to be learning with us too much. So certainly if it's a core service, we want people to have made their mistakes elsewhere. We have huge scale. So with Netflix or Amazon or the BBC, say Netflix has Better Call Saul, a new series comes out. Over the first 2 weeks, a very large proportion of their usership will come in and watch Better Call Saul. And they'll see some big peaks there, perhaps on a Saturday night. When El Clasico is on, the vast majority of our usership worldwide will come in within 5 minutes. And none of us had expected anything like this before. So the kind of scale we see, the peaks that we see, just blew all of our expectations out of the water. So we can't afford to take any risks on scale. So for us, it's all about scale. Can you hit scale at an incredible pace? And we run RFPs, and do a lot of due diligence, etc. It would be good if people had tried it out with other services beforehand.
Great. Okay. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there. So apologies if we didn't get to your question that you asked on Slido, but we have run out of time. David, thank you very much.
Thank you.